So I'm not going to lie, I don't think my tips and predictions were really that bad for, of course, round one. Again, there were a lot of things that I just didn't expect to happen, like my Richmond Football Club to come out and beat the Carlton, football club. Again, I did tip the Pies to go out and beat Port Adelaide, but I didn't tip them to freaking spank them on the ass in front of 60,000 plus people. Again, that was definitely a massive surprise. And there were, of course, a couple of other things like Geelong smashing Fremantle. Again, I tipped the Cats to win, but there were a lot of smashings in last round that were a bit surprising. A couple of different upsets like Richmond getting up and about. So you can tell that this AFL season could already be something pretty hard to predict. But again, I have a YouTube channel. I need to pay the bills and, of course, make some money to go out and order some more KFC. So we're back for another tips and predictions video this week for, of course, the 2025 AFL season round 2. And again, there's definitely a lot to talk about here. And we'll be starting off with the Carlton Football Club taking on Hawthorn on a Thursday night at the MCG. Again, the Carlton team that just happened last week against the Tigers really cannot happen against this Hawks team, because if they put what they did up against Richmond and Nick Haynes drops every single mark known to mankind and Mitch McGovern makes more mistakes than what my parents did when they decided to make me, then you're going to get absolutely blown out by 200 points, because the Hawks are a different beast and they are arguably the best team in the game right now. So I expect with, Vossi, a pretty hard nut coach coming into this, I think that the Blues will actually have a much more different and competitive display that will keep them in good stead, but I still don't actually think it's going to be enough to beat the Hawks. So I will be tipping Hawthorn to win. Again, I don't think it's going to be a thrashing like some people are saying, and I don't know if Carlton really just had a bad week or if they're generally just going to drop off, but I guess we're going to find out all of that and more against the Hawks. But for the time being, again, I do have Hawthorn winning, but yeah, you don't really know in today's AFL, do you? But we do have I assume going to be a pretty blockbuster game of the Western Bulldogs versus Collingwood Magpies on the Friday night at the MCG. Again, I know technically the Magpies, from what we saw, absolutely destroying Port Adelaide and freaking embarrassing them really at the G. You would think that Collingwood should probably get the job done here against the Western Bulldogs. But you know what? I feel like I'm going to be a little bit different and kind of back in the Dogs to get this done, which is probably a stupid decision now that I'm thinking about it, considering the Dogs absolutely crumbled against the Hawks in the final with the, Hawks' insanely good pressure. And as we know, Collingwood are kind of renowned to be a pressure team, and the pressure they put up against Port Adelaide was insane. So it probably makes no sense here for me to be tipping the Western Bulldogs, and I could very well be changing my mind on this, but something tells me this Dogs team is actually a little bit different. Again, I liked a lot of what I saw from the North Melbourne game, so I actually think I'm gonna tip them here. Granted, all the players like Rory Lobb play, their back line holds up and hasn't had too many injuries, because I know there were a little bit of niggles from the North Melbourne game. But if you've got guys like Lobb not playing, then I think Collingwood they'll probably torch them up. So if this one will come down to who, of course, is fit and healthy. But I think I'm going to like the Dogs here, while we've got our third straight MCG game here now, Essendon versus Adelaide. Again, this is a really tough one to rank, because I want to say Adelaide are on the climb, and I don't really know what's going on with Essendon. But I think I might go with the home team here. Again, I didn't mind what I saw from the Bombers against Hawthorn, because we got to remember Hawks are arguably the best team in the game right now. And I didn't think the Bombers were really that bad. Again, losing Kyle Langford for 4 to 6 weeks is going to generally sting. But I liked a lot of what I saw from the young players. And granted that this is at the G, I think the Bombers might surprisingly get this done. And I guess speaking about surprises, we have Port Adelaide versus Richmond at the Adelaide Oval. And I know I could be getting caught up in the hype here as a Richmond fan, but I'm going to be even crazier again. I'm going to tip the Tigers to beat Port Adelaide. And this is coming from a Richmond fan who just wanted to see the young guys play this season. I didn't expect many more than 1 or 2 wins, but the fact that we've already got the first win of the season was something I never thought I'd see. And with Port Adelaide being absolutely destroyed by Collingwood and torched by the pressure that Collingwood put on display, I think Richmond, who historically actually have a good record against Adelaide teams at the Adelaide Oval, and one of their only wins being at the Adelaide Oval last year, I actually think if they can provide the pressure that they did against Carlton and that they did in that second half, I actually think the Tigers will and could win this game, especially if Lynch plays again. Lynch is suspended, but I believe Richmond are appealing that, and even if that fails, they'll probably somehow try and appeal it again. Because if Lynch plays, I think they are a completely different team. If he doesn't, it might be tougher, but again, they won at Adelaide Oval last year without Tom Lynch. I think that Port Adelaide, unfortunately, could be this surprise team that really drops off and doesn't have a good year. But in saying that, this is their time to go up against Richmond, who literally think they're on top of the world right now, and just beat them and prove everyone wrong, because I think they're still the heavy favourites, but it went from them being like, you know, $1 something to Richmond like $7.50 to, I think it's much more stabilising out now. So that'll be interesting. I do have the Tigers winning, but that could be a very good one. We've also got St Kilda versus Geelong. Again, I do think with what I saw against Fremantle, Geelong will get the job done, and Bailey Smith and his luscious blonde hair that freaking wows every single girl in a 30-kilometer radius, he'll probably get the job done here, and he looks like an absolute freak for Geelong right now. So I do think they will possibly go on to beat the Saints. It is at Marvel though, while the Brisbane Lions are playing the Eagles at the Gabba. Again, with the Eagles having a new coach, a new system, being very, very fast-paced, I think this is a great game to really come out and prove that you aren't going to be a lock for a bottom tier team. You're not going to be a lock to be second last like you have for the last couple of years. If you can come out and actually compete against the Brisbane Lions at the Gabba, that will earn a ton of respect amongst the AFL fans and AFL community. I just hope that this isn't a blowout. Again, Brisbane, they looked at times really, really solid against Sydney, while at other times there was a bit of, maybe a tiny bit of rust, but also Sydney had played an extra game when they did play the Lions, and the Lions came into it just, coming in with their first game. Sydney had an extra game. The Lions were still able to get the job done at Sydney's home ground too. I think now that they're going back at the Gabba, they have another week into them to clear off any rust that they had against Sydney, who, that was a solid win for starters. They could come out and smack West Coast here, but we'll definitely have to wait and see, while the North Melbourne Football Club plays Melbourne at Marvel on that Sunday as well. Again, two teams that no one expects to be that good, but not that bad. Again, North have kind of been rising on a lot of people's lists, and the game they actually had against the Dogs was really, really solid, considering the Dogs were a top 8 team last year, and they were pretty neck and neck for a lot of it. I think they actually could be an okay team this year, and I think they'll be around that same mark as what Melbourne will be of. They don't want to finish 16th. Is 11th or 12th too high for this team? They're probably going to be in like that bracket. Again, I actually think North might get the job done here. I think what they did at Marvel against the Dogs was pretty good. I think the Dogs might be a bit ahead of Melbourne right now as well. And I like that the young guys, a lot of them, they really warmed into the game. Jack Darling actually looks solid at times with Nick Larkey there. Luke Parker looked okay. Caleb Daniel had his moments. I think they're going to take a tiny bit to gel because it was like 5 or 6 players who had never played in that team before. But I think they could actually get the job done here against Melbourne, while the Fremantle Dockers play against Sydney at Optus. And this could be the most crucial game in this round, because if Sydney lose this, they will be 0-3. And with how many good teams there are in this AFL season right now, that could almost like really diminish a lot of the chances they have for finals. 0-3 is a lot to come back from, and even a team like Collingwood, they won the flag in 2023. They started 0-3 in 2024, could not come back from it at all. And the last team I remember, like vaguely, who came back from a big margin was, I think, even, was it 2018 or 2017 when Sydney started off, I think, 0-6 and somehow made finals. Again, 0-3 is a big margin, so you don't want to lose here against the Dockers. But the Dockers had a really bad day against Geelong, and I don't know if they're getting Shea Bolton back, but the team, they shouldn't lose to Sydney here. If they want to be a top 8 team and wanted to be a top 4 team that a lot of people were having, they should beat Sydney here. But if Sydney are a top 4 team again, a grand final contender, they should also beat Fremantle here. So this is a game to watch. This is a game that everyone should be paying attention to, because Fremantle's season could have a massive hole in it after this one, while Sydney's season could be widely diminished and could almost be over if they start 0-3. That's just a very, very, very hard feat to come back from. So again, there's definitely a lot going on right now, and I genuinely don't know who to tip for this one, but I think I might go Fremantle, which would send Sydney to 0-3, which would be crazy to see. And they've just really had a really hard start, so maybe they could slightly come back, but I genuinely don't know. This is a big one. While the Giants and Gold Coast Suns have a bye this round, I don't know why. Why they already have a bye. That's very, very early on, but of course, that is the opening round for you in the AFL season. Again, I'd very much like to hear all of your thoughts and opinions on round 2 and your tips and predictions. Who are you, of course, going for? Do you think my Richmond Tigers could genuinely beat Port Adelaide here, or what do you think it's going to be? Again, I'd very much like to know. Don't forget to subscribe to the gaming channel, which will be linked down below, and this channel for all latest sports content and news. Again, leave a like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll be seeing you guys next time. Goodbye.